Hi, everybody. I'm Glenn Kennedy. This is Charles Moss. I'm a lifelong resident along with Charles Moss. I've been here 60 years, and Charles, you've been here 84 years. My God.
Yeah, I know it. Taking better care of myself. I know that, right?
Yes. So, West Covina turns 100 this year, and for the last few years, me and Charles have been kicking around the idea of doing short videos and doing a series of videos about the history of West Covina. So, what we're going to do some videos and talk to various people throughout the city about the history. So, Charles, with that, tell us, how did West Covina actually get started?
Covina decided to run their sewer and build sewer plants in West Covina. And they picked three locations. And the first location was on San Bernardino Road. There were Earl Shives in that area.
Okay, so um, that's funny because Ellen Yaw Beach owned that property, and who was Lark Ellen, and she was like the Elvis Presley of her time. She was the big rock star of her era. And then across the street north of San Bernardino Road was the Vincent family, which the street Vincent is named after. And the southwest corner would be owned by the Reynolds family. And so those three pretty prominent people. So you knew that wasn't going to happen.
Oh, never was going to happen. Yeah.
And by the way, what a lot of people don't know, there's an underground riverbed that runs through there.
Correct.
And so bad idea. So what was your second choice?
The second choice was across from West Covina High School at Aspen Village.
Aspen Village, yes.
Yes. And they were going to put it in there, but I think it was too small, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
as I've been told, they only could purchase so much property, and it wasn't going to be big enough. So, and the third location was where it hit home, right?
Where it hit home. Our ranch was right there where the Catholic Church is today, and my Aunt Elsie's was towards the freeway on this
So
side.
that would be Glendora Avenue, and your Aunt Elsie. What I do know is your Aunt Elsie owned the property from the corner of Glendora and Cameron all the way to Glendora and Belinda, and then going westbound all the way to the backside of the mall where Marie Callender's CNR Clothers used to be. And I know that when the property was purchased, your aunt bought it unseen.
Correct.
And they tried to pull a fast one on her because in that part of town that it flooded out, it was unusable property.
That's correct. And but she showed them that wasn't going to happen.
Yes, and that started the war.
The real war started over that. And that's when we broke away from Covina. And Covina would do whatever they wanted, but they weren't going to get away with this one. And so, and that was prime walnut land there. Very good walnut land. And even in those days, it was very expensive. And it'd been a shame to take that and put that plant there just for that reason. Otherwise, we didn't want it in West Covina.
So who started this uproar?
I would imagine it was probably Mr. Maxon would be the head. He was our first mayor. And there was a group of farmers who got together, different people, the Hearst family, probably the Berger family, and some of the Mott's family and the Waldrops.
And the Kranzes?
Kranzes, oh yes.
Yes.
Was close to their property.
So I know Benjamin Franklin Maxon is the godfather of West Covina. He was our first mayor. He was the first superintendent of the school district, and he ran the packing house up there in La Puente for the walnuts. Mm-hmm. So he was a man to be reckoned with. He really was, and at that time we needed strong leaders, and he was a strong leader.
That's correct, very strong, and it was all walnuts at that time. Even though you don't see many walnut trees later on, they got a disease. They were attacked by the codling moth.
Yes,
and we didn't have insecticides in those days. And so most of the walnuts had to come out and be replanted. And this land was just wonderful for walnuts. Wonderful.
Yeah, I do know when Lucky Baldwin foreclosed on the Workman and Temples, he got all this property. I know about 1879, 1880, somewhere around there, he started planting walnuts. And And there's a reason why there's walnuts here.
Sure is.
Tell us, Charles. Tell us the reason why.
We have about 10 to 12, 15 feet of outstanding topsoil. Unbelievable. And then below that is pure sand for maybe, I don't know, 50 feet. I don't really know myself. And when we irrigated or put down chemicals or any fertilizers, which we didn't use many in those days, and when it rained, instead of building up a hard pan below and the water laying there and rotting the roots, the water would just go right on through and the roots would just continue on down and there'd be no destruction. And how we fertilize our orchards was we raised mustard grass, that yellow grass you see on the hills, and it would get as high as a young boy, maybe 4 or 5 feet high, and they would disc it under, and that would bring the nitrogen into the soil. So you couldn't have that building up below the root system; you would kill it.
Okay, so it's very interesting that there's no granite, there's no hard pan in West Covina, so it's all sand. So it's ideal for walnuts and citrus too, especially orange trees.
Yeah.
So when the salts and the materials and the minerals get released, they flush out. See, when they hit the hard pan, they come back up and they destroy the roots.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and walnuts was king here, and the land was just wonderful, and Baldwin did a wonderful job in putting in the trees.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that they would know that type of technology
It is.
in the 1880s.
It is, and you notice that different areas had walnuts, and some were left vacant.
Yes.
And that they knew that soil wasn't quite as good there, so they didn't bother with it.
And then that's because water was king, right?
Water was king. You couldn't get enough water, or that land didn't have water rights.
Yes.
You had to have water rights here to irrigate. You still had to have water rights even back in those days. And if you didn't have water rights, you just couldn't irrigate. That's the bottom line.
Yes, and I know that about 1900, 1905, somewhere around there, we were known as Walnut Center.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to incorporate her like 1909, but you know, everybody dragged their feet, and then a few years later World War I broke out, and then after the war they still dragged their feet until they wanted to put a sewer plant in.
Yeah, that's right.
And that fired up this community in a heartbeat.
That was a war.
Yeah,
that was a war. I guess it's over with. I don't know. You never know.
Yes, it's been long over with, yeah. But that's how basically West Covina got started. And we had, as we mentioned before, we had strong leaders. You know, our first council, we had people like Seymour Watts and Art Yarnell and George King and Chuck Anderson. And I know that Chuck Anderson died his first year in office, or didn't even make the year. And then he was replaced by George Glorge. And that's a guy who planted all the palm trees, you know, up and down Lark Allen, up and down Hollenbeck. And here, 130 years later, they're still here.
They're still here. Yeah. And that's because of the soil conditions.
That's because of the soil
conditions. And it was just too good to leave, maybe. You know,
yes.
It's just so wonderful soil. And but walnuts were kings, water was king, and the climate was wonderful. What else could you ask for?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Mr. Maxson was ahead of the packing house also.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
So with that, we'd like to say thank you for watching, and hit the like button or hit the dislike button, but hit a button.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.